just want to say I'm really excited, I suppose, at being able to give the word tonight. It's something that certainly over the last year, being able to give words and message and things like that is something that I've really developed I've really enjoyed developing, and I really enjoy giving God's word to people. So I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity. When first studying Isaac and Abraham, it's very easy just to skim over it and just to read it as just a normal Bible story that maybe you consider a bit barbaric. God's telling Abraham to kill his son. And it's very easy to not realise that there's an underlying theme of this story in the Bible, which I'm hoping I can show you tonight, and I hope it will make sense as well. The story I find of Abraham and Isaac's potential sacrifice, I find it really, really fascinating, a really, really interesting biblical story. And so, kind of to put a bit of context in, at the end of chapter 20 and then the beginning of chapter 21, we see that God has restored Sarah back to being able to have children, and a couple of other women back to being able to have children, because for a time it made them barren. And Abraham and Sarah as well can both be considered far too old to have children. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 11, which Anna read, it says, "And by faith even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was unable to bear children." And then you also see in Genesis chapter 21 verse 5 that Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 17 says, "By faith when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son." And that shows us that Isaac is Abraham and Sarah's only son. And those 2 points, try and keep them in your mind if you can, because they're important for a bit later on. So just to kick off, I just want to look at John 3:16 and 17. It says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." When I was planning this talk, one thing came into my mind when I was studying. There's a father sacrificing their son, whom they dearly loved, their only son, and both of them were raised again, certainly Jesus from the dead, and as it says in Hebrews chapter 11 verse 19, to an extent Isaac was raised from death, even though Abraham did not sacrifice him. Both fathers had sons whom they dearly loved, their only sons, and they were prepared to sacrifice them. God didn't have to give Jesus up for us, but he did. And like God, Abraham was prepared to give up his only son. But he had absolute faith and had absolute trust in God to do that. Abraham trusted God and believed that God's plan was best, even if it meant sacrificing Isaac, his one and only son. That's what we need to be like in our lives. We need to be prepared to make sacrifices to follow God's plan for us. Whatever any of us might be going through now, whatever any of us might be going through now, whether it is good or bad, God has a plan for it, God has a reason for it. And don't lose your faith in God for that. Abraham could have lost his faith in God for telling him to sacrifice his only son, but he didn't. He trusted his plans, and that's what we need to do, because who knows, 10 years time you might meet someone else who's got exactly the same problem as you, and you can help them. God has a plan for us that we're never going to know what's going to happen in a year, in a week, 10 years, but there's a reason for what's going on now, there's a reason for what's going to happen then, and it's God's plan, so we know that it is the best plan for us, whatever it is. We need to be like Abraham in our lives. We need to make sure we have absolute faith and absolute trust in God. Now, I said when I first started, remember Abraham's age. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. And so we can estimate that Isaac would have been between 15 to 25 years old when Abraham was preparing to sacrifice him. And in fact, Josephus, the scholar from sort of around the 70s AD, says that Isaac was 25 years old when Abraham was going to sacrifice him. But, we can't really be absolutely certain of how old Isaac was. So we'll go down the middle and we'll say that that's going to make Abraham 120 years of age. And somehow he's able to get hold of Isaac, bound him. Notice what it says in verse 9. It says, when they reached the place that God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. So at 120 years of age, Abraham is building an altar, putting wood on it, getting hold of Isaac, tying him up, lifting him and putting him on the altar. 120 years old. I can't think of a single 120-year-old person who's probably even able to eat themselves or do anything like that for themselves. And yet here's Abraham able to do that. And I think probably I'd struggle doing something like that even now. It was only by the grace of God was he able to have that strength to do that. Isaac was prepared to trust his father absolutely and allow him to ready him for sacrifice. And I would imagine that he's going to be fully aware of what is going to happen. It's not going to take a genius to realise my father is tying me up, has made a sacrificial altar, hasn't got anything to sacrifice, and he's put me on the altar. Isaac is probably going to know that Abraham's going to sacrifice him, but he's trusting his father. He has absolute faith in his father to allow him to do that. We'll divulge in that a bit further in a minute. But these verses, you can see absolute faith being demonstrated. You see Abraham's absolute faith in God, and you see Isaac's absolute faith in his father, knowing that both knew that their father's plans was best for them. So for me, for this part, I think it's so important. Let's be like Abraham. Let's have that faith and that trust in God to do whatever God asks of us. And then when you study the Genesis chapter 22, when you're looking at Isaac, you see more and more a theme of Jesus and Abraham being like God. The love and trust a son has for their father, and the love a father has for their son. Isaac trusted his father and knew that his father knew best. Verses 7 and 8. Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father." "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "The fire and the wood are here," Isaac said, "but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the two of them went on together. And then Matthew chapter 26 verse 39 says, going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." Can you see a similarity there? Both are questioning their father, both are questioning their father's plan, but they know that their father's plan's best, and they're prepared to trust their father's plan and go through with their father's plan because of their love and because of their trust and because of their faith in their father. Both Jesus and Isaac would have known their fate, and yet they allowed their fathers to sacrifice them because they had that love and that faith and that trust in their father. Now verse 6, Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. Isaac is carrying the wood up to his sacrificial place, up on a hill. Does that sound familiar from somewhere else? The sacrificial offering, carrying the wood up the hill to their sacrificial place. John chapter 19 verse 17 says, really should have marked these pages out. I say chapter 19, wasn't it? John chapter, sorry about this, chapter so the soldiers took charge of Jesus. Carrying his own cross, he went out to the place of the skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. Jesus carried his own cross up the hill to his sacrificial place. God provides a ram for Abraham, and God provides a lamb to save us. Can you now see why I'm saying Isaac and Jesus are similar? They both carry the wood up to the sacrificial place, ready for their death, and are both accepting of what is going to happen to them soon. Jesus accepts a crucifixion, and Isaac seemingly accepts his fate of being sacrificed by his father. Another similarity I found with the crucifixion story is the length of the journey to the sacrificial place. Verse 4 says, "On the third day Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance." On the third day. Where else is the third day significant? In Luke chapter 24 verse 7 and 8 it says that on the third day Jesus was risen from the dead. The third day. Now I believe that that's significant. I don't know whether you will, but on the third day, as it says in Hebrews, Abraham received Isaac back from death on the third day. God got Jesus back from death on the third day. Father receives their son back from death. Now to me, certainly, I can see so many similarities with the crucifixion story in these verses, and I'm hoping that you're seeing that as well. Now in verses 13 and 14 it says, "Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, 'The Lord will provide.' And to this day it is said, 'On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided.'" God provides for us. Abraham had faith in God to provide. We have faith in God, and he will provide for us in some way. Whether it is how we expect it or not, he will provide for us. Verse 8 says, "Abraham answered, 'God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son.'" And verse 14, of course, as I've just read, it said, Abraham called the place, "The Lord will provide." God provides a ram for Abraham. God provided for Abraham. God always provides for us in the best ways. God provided that ram to save Isaac. God provided his son, the lamb, to save us. Believe and trust in God, and he will provide for us. The ram as a sacrifice for Isaac is a metaphor for us. We are the ones who are to die and to face eternal separation from God until he sent his sacrificial lamb for us. He sent Jesus for us. The sacrificial ram allowed Abraham to save his son, to save him from death. Verse 17 says, "I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies." Notice how it says, because Abraham trusted and obeyed God, all of Abraham's offspring will be blessed throughout the earth. And if we have faith and we have trust in God and we obey God, then I'm sure we're going to receive his blessings. Now, this is only a snippet, to me, certainly that I see, of Jesus throughout the Old Testament. Throughout the Old Testament there is a distinct theme of Jesus. And another conclusion that I take from the passage is that we need to have faith in God. His plans are best for us, no matter what we are going through. God is always there for us, and we need to have faith in him to reap his blessings. We need to have trust in him to reap his blessings. If we don't have faith in God, then we aren't going to get his blessings. Simple as that. Trust in God and he will provide. So let's be like Abraham. Have absolute faith in God, and eventually he will in some way provide for us. So I'll just pray and hand over to music. God, thank you for tonight. I just pray that word made sense and that people were happy with it. And if anyone has any problem with that word, take away, just allow them to have that confidence to come to me. Just pray that you bless this worship now, and just pray that you bless the rest of this evening as well, to God. Amen.